Hey, John.
Hey,
Welcome. How are
hey,
you, my
how's it
friend?
going?
I'm doing well. It's another episode of Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik podcast. It's Monday once again, and it's time to hack your face, my friend.
Yeah,
I've
that's
got some
right.
good VR stories for listeners this week. So let's get started. This one
All
is a
right.
lot of fun. I know how much you love the VR stuff, and you're a big fan of it. So I'm sure you'll geek
Sure.
out to this. There's a YouTube channel that I really enjoy watching, and it's called Defunct Land. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Okay, so Defunct Land is a YouTube channel dedicated to all of the amusement park rides that cease to exist. Make sense?
There.
So
I have been on some of these that they should not be in operation.
true, very true.
Yeah.
So this guy dedicated a lot of time into creating this YouTube channel over the last quite a few years now that goes in and captures footage from people's old camcorder home movies, that type of thing, newsreels,
Okay.
and talks about what rides used to be at, say, like Disneyland or something like that. And it's gone for whatever reason. Maybe it's the topic has gone out of style or fashion. Maybe it was too dangerous. Maybe it didn't do well. There's a million reasons they removed these rides over the years to create new attractions for people. So he's trying to kind of preserve history by making this YouTube channel. And one of the things that he wanted to accomplish was kind of a pipe dream, was to recreate these rides in virtual reality so
Of course.
they didn't go out of existence completely.
Right. Right.
So they have released a video of the first VR ride in their beta of their application. So they brought back 2,000 Leagues Under the Sea in VR.
20,000 leagues.
Or sorry,
20,000.
20,000. Yeah, it's more impressive.
Yeah.
Much more impressive at 20,000. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in VR. And they actually have the I will not play the audio here. I don't know what any of the copyright information is. So we'll go ahead and mute this. But it actually has, if you go to the YouTube channel and play.
Yeah, it's in the three-dimensional YouTube video thing.
It is not yet. It will be an app eventually.
No,
So
but I
it'll
mean
be-
the
it'll-
video you're showing is a three-dimensional video.
It is not. It is just a preview to show what.
Really?
What
You can
they're
see the
building.
scroll. You can scroll around, move your mouse around, and click and
Is
drag.
it really?
Yeah, yeah, because you've got the arrows at the top left.
Oh, this is actually streaming in 8K, so it's probably crushing my network right now. So let's bring that down while we're streaming.
No, but if you scroll around, you can scroll around, and
Wow.
this is the thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did not know that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I watched it on a television set, so I didn't.
There you go.
I didn't realize it was actually in 3D. Oh, that's even cooler. So, it'll
Really?
be really cool once you get it in VR, and you're
Okay.
able to look around, free look. But they have the audio track from the original ride intact,
Right.
at pretty decent quality. I watched the entire thing. It's not that visually striking. It doesn't have the best rendering in the world. It doesn't look realistic, but neither did the ride. So the ride was actually pretty campy. It's like one of those old school dark rides where
Sure.
you're like half seated underneath the water. It's basically a glass bottom boat, and you float over all this fake stuff and kind of a diorama of what's under the sea. But it's you have to think this was in the 1950s and 1970s that these rides were operating, so it's not going to be that amazing. But what is cool is I actually got to ride this when I was a small kid. I don't remember what year it closed down. It looks like it says 1994. So I rode it in the 80s at some point, and I actually remembered certain key points in the ride, just because when you're little and this stuff is much more believable. It kind of imprints on you, and it was neat to go back and re-experience the ride. So
Sure, I would love to see an animatronic VR rendering of James Mason as Captain Nemo. That would be kind of cool if you could interact with him, or or Kirk Douglas, who is playing the role of Ned Land. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. It's a great classic movie, by the way. But it's neat. I can't wait to see what else they imagine and pull out of this VR thing that they're going to do. They want to have a whole theme park of these abandoned rides that you can go relive. So I think that'll be pretty neat once they get done.
All right.
More VR hackery. This one caught me off guard. Like, I never expected. This was like one of those things where you don't realize that there is a problem in need of a solution. So this one is a dev kit that lets you test a framework called Spark AR, an augmented reality app for your mobile device. So It is a mobile device emulator that you use in VR to test AR. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
So I thought this was interesting. I never would have thought about it. I don't do AR development as much as I'm interested in it, and I read about it all the time. It just never.
This is the turducken of technologies around virtual reality. So.
Oh man, I'd love to have that on, I don't know, like a license plate or something.
Sure.
Turducken of technology. So
it's the peanut butter in my chocolate, all that stuff, right? So I get it. I understand why they need this. So it makes sense. But yeah, still.
Yeah. So Spark AR is this AR framework for, I don't know if it's device specific, but it helps you build, it does things like surface recognition and all that. I'm sure. And it helps you build these AR apps and games and things. But the developers say that this is for allowing people to explore locations they don't have access to and test their app in environments that they, simply can't access.
Yeah, makes total sense. So, yeah, I'm not poo-pooing this idea at all. I actually think it makes a lot of sense. It's just weird. That's all.
It definitely makes a lot of sense, but it's one of those things that I just didn't think, I never would have thought was a necessity unless you're in the trenches building these type of AR apps. Then you see the necessity for software like this.
Yeah, you need to create rooms that are certain dimensions, right? If you're going to test it for certain, like if you're building the next IKEA AR experience, you want to maybe have a showroom that's big enough. You can't rely on your apartment. So yeah. Makes sense.
Or maybe your office cubicle or wherever you're at. So this is pretty neat stuff. It's very like tech Inception, though, like you said.
Yeah, definitely Inception. Yeah.
Turducken of tech. All right.
I got nothing.
This goes out to a friend of ours, Chris DeMars. He's usually here in chat with us during the show, and a good friend I know personally. He sent me this article the other day, and I thought it was a really good read. So this is up on Dev2, and this is talking about the colors of the web, and it goes over things like accessibility and why you need to use certain tooling and certain color profiles for your applications.
Okay.
So good information here. He talks about some of the different color profiles that people see. Not everybody sees color the same and have different color blindness. I don't know what the terminology is, but there's.
I think it's called color. It's listed as CVD, which stands for color something deficiency or something like that. So its acronym is defined above.
So there's several different kinds, and he has nice depictions of what those apparently look like. It's a pretty lengthy read here too. So it's good stuff. There's some talk about contrast ratios and contrast checkers that you can pull up in your Chrome DevTools, which is super handy. Some of that stuff is built in, and there's some plugins that used to do this kind of stuff, but a lot of it's built in now. So you can inspect or Alt F12 or whatever the shortcut key is. Control Shift I. You can just point at the page and look at your colors, and it'll tell you if it contrasts, has the right ratio, and all that good stuff. So there's a lot of accessibility tools built right into the browser that people just are unaware of. So good read here by Chris, and I think he shared that with the chat room last week as well.
Nice.
But good stuff there. This is a tweet that I came across by another friend of ours, Brandon Satrum, and he built a CI/CD build light kind of indicator. So I don't know why you'd want this, but it's still cool nonetheless.
Yeah.
You can build things just because they're cool, right? This is like one of those like industrial light systems that they use on manufacturing floor, like where you have some kind of machine building something, some automated process, and if the line goes down, the light turns red, that kind of nonsense.
Sure.
He took one of those and he built an IoT interface for it, and there's kind of information here on how he built all of that. And he did a video and everything, and it's up on Hackster.io. But if you follow him at Brandon Satrum on Twitter, you can find this very easily. And there's a video on the build out and stuff. So cool idea there. I thought that was.
I like it. Yeah. You can. It's like a means to an end, basically. Anything that's event driven around this sort of thing is going to be meaningful, I think. So it's important that people understand this stuff. When you start using these cards, like for example, a Raspberry Pi, like this one, there's a lot of things you can do with it, and the APIs are so simple now. There's really nothing you can't do, and these events are very simple, actually. But there you can think of some more complicated examples that you could leverage off of this. I know that a friend of ours, Troy Hunt, has wired up his house and is trying to get his garage door to open and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of things that people are doing with these devices, which is great.
Yeah, it'd be kind of neat to hook one of these into Visual Studio and have it light up while you're doing your live unit testing. You start typing code and it breaks something and it turns red. I mean, that wouldn't be nerve-wracking at all, as if live coding isn't bad enough.
just turn up the voltage on the cattle prod, basically, to make you work better.
Yeah.
So
work faster, work harder.
That's right.
That's all good stuff.
I've just given some managers a bad idea. Sorry about that.
Really, I think you had. Did you have a IoT?
A book list? Yeah. Yeah, it's the next one over. There you go.
Oh, sorry, this one here?
Yeah.
Is this it? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, so this is the Engineering Manager's book list. This has been written up by Jesse Palmer, who's has a list of books that he would recommend for those of you who are involved in the profession of managing engineers. It's not a really easy job, to be honest. It's actually pretty tough. You got different personality types. You get different levels of skill and proficiency in coding, and so it's a tough thing to do. And he provides a list of books here that might help you leverage your strengths while trying to leverage other people's strengths. And so this is basically a list of books that he'd recommend, and definitely worth perusing.
Managing humans. That sounds like something an alien would say.
That's right. Well, it can be tough. I mean, you've got a number of different dynamics regarding the management of people. And it's probably one of the most important things you do, obviously, as a business is how you take care of your folks. And so specifically, if you wanting to get the best out of people, I think it's really important that you know how to work with people, and you know how to make sure that they're taken care of, etc. So these are great books to worthwhile looking at. Around this sort of thing, there's another recommendation I would quote, which is I know leading slow. There's a podcast that I've listened to for a number of years called Manager Tools, and Manager Tools is a great podcast. It's been going for about 15 years, and these guys, they're fantastic. So if you're looking for resources on, kind of moving into this space, these books will help. Podcasts are available. I think it helps to know your team very well, and that kind of dovetails into the other article I mentioned. But knowing your team is probably going to be one of the most important things for you as a manager to know, like the types of personalities that are there. Most people are very in the engineering field, they're very sort of introspective and very focused on the technical side of things. But it does help to know who's on your team and how to make them most effective going forward. So
there's some interesting titles in here. I'd love to just read the summaries of these. What the heck is brotopia?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's something about the bro culture that we've tried to weed out of this industry.
Yeah, not a fan.
Yeah, I'm sure it's informing people of it, not teaching them how to be it.
Yeah.
So some interesting stuff there, and this is on GitHub.
Yes.
So
just search for the engineering manager's book list, and you'll find it there.
Very cool. Time awareness.
Yeah. So obviously, given the fact that most of us all of us pretty much are working from home, this was a very interesting article about basically how people are working remotely. I don't know about you guys, but I've been working remotely since probably 2004, roughly. And so I have a few years under my belt, and I think that this article does a good job of kind of summarizing, what are some of the challenges you'll face working remotely. And I think a lot of people have experienced this year with COVID for sure. And I think one of the biggest challenges is kind of going dark and not being able to connect with people like you normally would. Obviously, that's the thing that you see with remote work. And so what this article does is it goes through the details of being focused on taking time out from, just being alone and working remotely and taking the time to take care of yourself. And the thing about it is that he goes through the sort of techniques that you can adopt when working remotely, including establishing a schedule to keep yourself on track and motivated. But it's important to note that your schedule is not a prison, right? So you got to make sure that you've got some time in there to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, obviously. But as you can see here by this pie chart and other data points that he includes, is that two of the top. I guess the three top ones are collaboration, communication is a big struggle, right? We've seen that with Zoom meetings. Loneliness is obviously one. There's not a lot of water coolers in your remote office. And then not being able to unplug. That one is, more of a tendency I think you see with engineers who tend to rat hole and spend a lot of time focused on problems. And they also don't take the time out. Like when 5 o'clock hits, it's very easy to just walk back in the office afterwards and just do a little bit more work. And so I struggle with these myself, but over time you start to notice like what works for you and such. So it's really important, I think, that, and I would say that I would even classify that distractions at home is not necessarily a struggle as long as it's containable, right? So sometimes you'll find that during the day there might be things that you have to do, and with flexible hours, we're working remotely. Some of these things have to be taken care of. So an example might be a service technician comes over for, doing maintenance on your roof or your laundry machine or whatever. Those are distractions technically, but, sometimes those are, high priorities for you to maintain your house. And so working remotely does have these challenges. So this is another state of report. We've done CSS, we've done JavaScript, we've done pretty much everything. And now this is a state of working remotely.
Yeah, one of the big ones I think that would relate to you, John, is this being in a different time zone than teammates.
Sure.
In the past especially, I mean, being in Australia, you're quite a time zone away from a lot of the rest of the tech world. Yeah, you have to time shift a little bit. And embarrassingly, for a while there, I've been on some late night calls like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and it's tough. Especially when you have kids and you have to get up to take them to school, etc. So it can be a challenge. I have embarrassingly fallen asleep on one call and been muted because I've been snoring. It's tough. It's tough. Like why do I care? It's just like, I'll be honest. It's one of those things that can be hard. So time zone management is definitely a challenge. And it does happen a lot now, especially more so now that we've gone to a pretty remote workforce. That is geolocated around the world, essentially. So I've worked with people in India, I've worked with people in England, I've worked with people in the United States, and it can be a real challenge. There's tools to help you manage that. Unfortunately, the crossover of meeting times is not always great, especially when you've got people on different continents where you're trying to... Two is manageable. 3 or more is definitely a challenge in terms of finding good meeting times. But these are other struggles, are definitely worth mentioning. So in that article, they talk about setting out a schedule, planning out time to read email, planning out time to work
to work out, planning out time to meditate, have dinner with your wife, etc. So these are things that a schedule will help you with, and those forcing functions are good.
Very cool stuff. Yeah, this is especially important for people that haven't done this type of work before. I have a lot of empathy for folks that they talk about loneliness in this. I know there's different categories in there as well, but some people, they want coworkers and friends to hang out with and have family at home. Some people don't even have family at home. You live alone in this environment right now. It's got to be tough.
Very tough. Yeah, that's why you're seeing governments around the world providing more social services for people to talk. Definitely, if you're struggling, you should definitely reach out and talk to someone. I would slot that in there, especially with COVID. COVID has kind of turned this upside down with a lot of things. So, but that's the reality we're in right now. So, it's important to establish these things. So if you haven't taken the time to plan out your day on a schedule, it can be helpful. It can certainly give your life a little bit more purpose as well, because it allows you to look at it and say, I've actually achieved this, and this during the day. And mapping out times to do email as opposed to constantly just checking to see if you've got one sitting in your inbox. These things can be very helpful.
Yeah, it's nice to have those punch lists to go through and see what you've accomplished.
Yeah.
That's always... I hate making lists because they look so just overwhelming at first. But I've got a huge to-do list for house improvements and things over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many times I've knocked that thing out and recreated it. And I mean, there's just massive stuff on there, like get a new roof, rebuild the deck, remodel a bathroom, and then you start knocking them out, and you're like, wow, I actually got all that stuff done.
Yeah. How many Pomodoros is this going to take?
Is this a link of yours? Did this open up in the wrong place?
Nope, this is the right place.
Right.
Yeah, so Ubiquiti is a very popular solution for, it's kind of a prosumer line of products for networking. You'll see a lot of nerds like us utilize these at home. And unfortunately, it looks like that they've recently discovered that there was a bit of a breach. So you probably would have, if you're a customer, you probably would have seen this email. And so they're encouraging to either change your credentials or enable two-factor authentication. So it's an ongoing story. I saw it on Hacker News, the number one story on Hacker News right now. So just as an FYI, just a personal sort of, a public announcement sort of thing. Hey, this is just something to be aware of. So I'm a big fan of Ubiquiti solutions. I have a number of their products, and I think they're pretty awesome in terms of the prosumer market. So it's unfortunate this happens. This does happen, but just as an FYI to folks.
Yeah, I don't recall getting the email. I'm a customer as well.
So oh, okay.
Check into that one. So that they do have some really great Wi-Fi stuff for setting up meshes and networks in the house. I've got a mesh system from them. Phenomenal. It's I got in the cycle of buying a new Wi-Fi router every year because they would just magically crap out after about a year to a year and a half.
Right.
And they were roughly $100. And, $100 a year, that's a pretty decent expense to keep having to pay for every year on a, it's like almost like a really crappy contract renewal that you keep getting stuck with. Yeah. So we would have all the devices in the house, intermittent and shutting off and all that. And you'd have to go unplug it, plug it back in. And we'd end up just replacing that router. So after about the second time, maybe the third, I was like, all right, I don't care if I have to pay good money as long as it lasts longer than a year.
Sure.
So I think the mesh system ended up being about $250, which is about twice what you pay for one of those throwaway models. And it's lasted, I want to say 4 years now.
Oh, good.
So it's definitely worth the investment to get good equipment. And these things happen. There's been a lot of security breaches and things recently, so that's not a surprise.
No.
Two-factor everything, folks. Two-factor it all. right. So, what I've learned in 45 years of software industry.
Yeah. So Joel Goldberg recently retired and took the time to share some of his wisdom that he had collected over the 45 years that he was in the industry. Phenomenal achievement. 45 years in the software industry is not easy because of the pace of change and all that sort of stuff. So he provides a bullet list of tips and tricks here. I think there's about 6 of them where he kind of says what helped him in his journey. So number 1, beware of the curse of knowledge. So, this one is basically, it can obfuscate your willingness to look at things, and it can also, solidify some assumptions, unfortunately. So if you know something, try not to assume you know everything. So it's important to make sure you reset your defaults. Number 2, focus on the fundamentals. And these are basically, you're going to be part of a team. So a lot of these are basically aligned to working with others. And you'd think, software is, what matters is the code, not the people. And it's the opposite. Actually, the people you're working with are the people who you're going to rely upon. And so if you're, kind of dovetailing from that story or that article we mentioned about working remotely, this is, incredibly important when working on a team. Number 3, simplicity. So make sure you keep things simple. It's the KISS principle, and ensuring that you don't try and get it over your head. And number 4, seek to first understand. So then be understood. And this is Stephen Covey's, kind of the mastermind on the effective manager. And so basically, you want to make sure that you have the ability to be a good listener and soundboard for people when they're articulating the problems that they're experiencing. And, you want to make sure that before you start, poo-pooing ideas and such, make sure you understand where people are coming from. And then beware of lock-in. This is a classic one. So don't try and not every peg is now a round hole, so to speak. So try to learn new tools. Last year I learned Go. So I never thought I would actually enjoy Go, but I actually don't mind it. So I've been doing Go programming for the past 6 months or so. Pick up a new language once in a while. Be a polyglot. Learn new tools, new approaches. And then finally, 6, be honest and acknowledge when you don't fit the role. So basically, it's important to be humble. And you don't want to suffer, obviously, from the Peter principle. But you want to make sure, listen, I don't have the skills to do this or that. Be a strong advocate for others. Push people forward and say, hey, this is going to work for you, and I would love to work with you on this.
Cool stuff.
So, yeah,
I like it.
Thought that was a good little article there.
Yeah, it's all great advice.
Yeah, my take on this is a lot of people I see in the industry, they kind of skyrocket into their exposure to the industry at large. But I think the people who are successful, the most successful, and by the way, you don't have to dress with the vest and tie and all that, but he does look pretty snappy. I gotta say that's a good 70s wardrobe look there.
So 70s.
Yeah, that's very good. That's the classic the lamb chop then goes into the beard. I grew up in the 80s, so I remember those very well. But I think, you see these people who are new to the industry and they skyrocket and they want to make a name for themselves, which is great. But to persist, you want to make sure that you've got a steadfast approach to doing these things, and it includes being humble. Don't worry about being the rising the shooting star and all that sort of stuff. So sometimes it's okay to be in the background helping others.
Absolutely. This is a very hard page to read.
Sorry about that.
Homebrew M1 is a go.
Yeah, so M1 is the new system on a chip from Apple. They introduced in the new MacBook line and MacBook Mini. Mac Mini. And obviously, there are technologies in macOS that enable existing software. I think they've got a technology called Rosetta that allows existing software written in previous gens, instruction sets, etc., to run on their new M1 chip. And so people were finding that when these M1 machines came out, that certain critical pieces of infrastructure, software infrastructure, like Homebrew, didn't support it. Homebrew is a an application package management tool on Mac. Allows you to install things really, really quickly. It's sort of akin to Chocolatey and apt-get, etc. People use it for all sorts of different things, and it is the sort of canonical way of installing SDKs and tools and such on Mac and other platforms. And so what they've talked about here is that given the fact that Go 1.16 beta has added ARM support, unblocks programs that depend on it, etc., transitions over to Homebrew has now been more facilitated. So there's lots of work that's being done. Basically, the long and short of it is that Homebrew now works on these new M1 chip machines, which is great.
Yeah. Down here, it's the author is putting their full recommendation in to go get one. And that's kind of been the resounding message here with that M1 chipset is everybody seems to be pretty pleased with all of it. So
yeah, my dad picked up one, and the biggest comment the biggest improvement he's noticed is the fact that the battery life is phenomenal. Like he'll use it all day, close the lid, open up the next day, and he's still at 11 hours left. So apparently battery life is fantastic.
Yeah, the performance on those things is amazing, especially for the battery life they get. But it's just it's amazing in general as to what they fit on the chip versus what you used to have in a machine. I mean, that chip is replacing what was in a laptop basically. And, discrete graphics card and all that nonsense is gone, and it's all on the chip. It's pretty wild. So. All right, effective TypeScript.
Yeah, so this is just a
2000.
Yeah, so this is one of those summary posts that you see often with websites. So effectivejavascript.com is a pretty popular site if you're targeting TypeScript. Sorry, I should have said TypeScript. Same thing, roughly. But basically, these are their top articles for 2020. A lot of good ones worth mentioning there. And, if you're doing TypeScript today, definitely worth checking these out. Obviously, the reason why these are popular is because a lot of people will in fact find themselves down, wrestling with the same issues that are articulated by these articles. So definitely worth checking out. This
is one that I always like going back to in all of the languages I know is this how to iterate over objects. Like you said, you were learning Go. I've done some Ruby, some TypeScript, some JavaScript, and C#. And this is always like that article that I want to have like the cheat sheet ready for.
Sure,
how to iterate over objects, because it's just what you do like 90% of the time is just iterating over stuff.
Yeah, most people know how to iterate through for and while loops, but it's where you have the key value pairs that are supported in the language itself, and TypeScript has that. So I know Go has that. There's a bunch of languages that do that. So it's basically it's like a shortcut into an indexer. But sometimes people struggle with it.
Yeah, you got to have your filter, map, reduce, all that good stuff as well.
Yep.
So it's always good to have those handy. So there's some good stuff in here.
Yep. Yeah, the number one, the golden rule of generics. Basically, this is, good use or bad use, and these are some of the ones that obviously they feel are the good uses. So yeah.
Old generics. It's once you get strongly typed objects, generics come up really quick.
Yep.
And they throw people off at first. It's a weird thing to see if you're not used to a typed language. All of a sudden you have this new set of angle braces around stuff, and there's a T, and there's letters being thrown around. It starts
what is this?
Like geometry class for the first time when you saw it in 8th grade. So yeah. That's one that I can imagine throwing some people for a loop, but it's got some really cool superpowers once you do learn what it is.
Yeah, it can be tough to read sometimes, but you've got all the benefits of a type safe, compile time, error checking language at your disposal, basically. So it looks harder to read, but it's benefited by the fact you've got a compiler behind the scenes kind of holding your hand through it, so it helps.
Good stuff. What
else
we have here? What is the type of JSON parse stringify of X?
Yeah. So this is a common example you see with, either on the server side or on the client side if you're doing an API call. You'll do this, you typically work with JSON. JavaScript object notation, and you'll parse it, and then in addition to that, you want to basically have the generated string version of that, JSON string version of that based on an object. And so this is sort of the round tripping, if you will, of an object to a JSON representation and back.
Yeah,
and so you got to watch out for this sometimes, because sometimes it can be a lossy expression, right? You can lose data in the transition, so you got to be careful.
That's kind of what I was going to say. I was going to say this can actually be used as a generic deep copy, but be aware of the side effects that can happen.
Yeah, there's semantics that can bite you, so you got to be careful about that, because there are some things that come back that don't make sense from an object perspective that are persisted in the JSON response, but you'll throw away, but may be important later on. So you got to be really careful.
All right, John, good stuff. I think that's about it for us this week. I want to give a little kind of advertisement here to something we're working on for the rest of the week on Code It Live. It is the kind of like the pandemic show, I guess you might say. So we're building a Signal R app. So we're doing a week of Signal R, and we're gonna build a card game in Signal R with Blazor and Signal R on the back end, and do some like real-time game interactions. So this came up. First of all, we wanted to have a show about Signal R. We have Alyssa Nicole on the team. She's learning some .NET. I told her how cool Signal R was, and she was like, what would be a good example of a fun Signal R app? And here at the house, we play a lot of board games during the pandemic. Everybody's, socially distant and all that good stuff. So we bought Uno for one of the game systems, only to realize there's no way to play it unless you're playing it exclusively with people online. That's because everybody doesn't have their own screen, so you can't view your own hand of cards.
Right.
So, I know where you're going to go with this, John. Just hang on. You can old man rant.
VR.
Oh, no. Hang on. So the idea is you all get your phones out and you look at a television screen, but you all still have your own screen in front of you with your private hand. So we're going to build that in Signal R. And I know what you're thinking, John, like we're throwing like this heavyweight technology at the simplest problem to solve.
No, I love it.
A deck of physical cards.
No, I love it. I think it's great.
Good.
In fact, I would actually argue this is the Nintendo model. Nintendo has gone down this route with its Switch lineup to support family gaming, and I think it's a fantastic way of connecting with your family. Nintendo's nailed this, I think, and so you've applied that same sort of model here for that, which is great.
So there's another series of games that do this as well, and it's my just assumption that they actually use Signal R because it's what gave me this idea. It just seems so obvious that Signal R could be the technology behind this. It's called Jackbox Games, and let's see if I can find one here. There's a ton of them. They're a lot of fun. They're worth the price of admission. But basically, of course, I'm not going to get like a preview of what this looks like.
Oh, I know this one. You don't know Jack. This one was a classic back in the day.
But how you play them is exactly what I'm showing here. Let's see if it shows it here.
You connect to through your phone.
Yeah, everybody in the room or abroad. You don't have to play locally. You can play on the internet. They even support Twitch and that sort of thing. Everybody brings their phone, and you get a simple like 4-digit code that logs you into the, I'll use server for lack of a better term, and you all sit around that screen and you interact together. So there it is. You type in your code, everybody's device links up, and then it asks you like questions. There's trivia games, there's games where you draw on your device, and they're all like along the lines of what are those things called? Mad Libs. They're kind of like Mad Libs games. Like you put, it'll ask you a question, you'll answer, and then it'll put it into some funny situation. They're all really entertaining, a lot of fun. One of our favorite ones is called Split the Room. So it'll ask you a question, you'll answer it, and the point of your answer is to get the rest of the room to vote split on whatever your answer was.
Oh, I see. Yep.
So you want to be you don't want it to be so heavily weighted. Everybody's like, oh, for sure, I'd rather eat X over Y. Whatever the question was, I'd rather have steak versus whatever kind of thing it is. So you want to answer like something in the middle that's going to get everybody to kind of pick one or the other. That one's a lot of fun. So we play that one a lot. So that kind of gave me the idea. We could build our own like Jackbox type game, and you could apply that to any type of game. But to keep it kind of reasonable, we chose the Crazy Eights card game, just to kind of simplify things a little bit, so the game rules don't get too out of hand. So join us next tomorrow at 11 o'clock. We're kicking that off. David Pine from the .NET Docs team is going to join us for some introduction and basics on SignalR. Then Alyssa and I are going to hack away for about 3 hours live streaming. And we're going to do that every day until Friday. We're going to end it Friday afternoon. So we've got full 4 days lined up here, starting tomorrow. The next day we'll have some more guests on. We've got Brady Gaster coming on. We've got Sam Basu coming on.
Nice.
And we've got, let's see, let me find the sign up page here as well, so we can kind of share this with everyone. Let's see here.
Uh-oh. Hurry up.
Did I
No,
it?
people are waiting. Come on. We're all staring at your bookmarks. We're quietly judging you.
I'm trying to find the page that... Oh, you know what? I'm looking in the wrong location here. We want to go to Twitter. We've been tweeting this out, so of course if you smash follow, you will definitely see it. So make sure you follow us on Twitch, and that's probably the easiest way to find it. We did have a nice landing page set up, though. And I think I've lost it, so... Yeah. We got... Kevin Griffin was the other person that I was trying to name there.
Oh, okay.
So he's going to join us as well. He's got...
Awesome.
He's actually got a story from the trenches to talk about a 911 operating system functionality that he built. That's actually a live, in-progress app that supports dashboards for the 911 system. So
Okay.
make sure you tune in all week for that. We've got some fun stuff to do, and I'm sure we'll have some prizes and things like that to give away as well. We always
prizes.
throw a good time here at Progress, don't we?
Yes. Cool.
Any news from you, John? Anything that you have? Any parting words?
Everyone just stay safe. I know that things are crazy, obviously, with the coronavirus, etc. So just continue to stay diligent, wash your hands, etc. Take care of each other, show acts of kindness. If you're looking for something to do, be helpful to someone else. That's one of the best ways you can help get through this. So, yeah.
All right, man. Thanks again for joining me and bringing all of the articles and the fun.
Cool.
We'll see you next week. And
all right.
Everybody have a safe week, and hopefully you smash the follow button and tune into our SignalR extravaganza here. We're gonna have a crazy Eights week. So
I love it.
Enjoy. Take care. Let's see here. I've lost my console. There we go. All right. Have a good one, everyone.